Hi, everyone. So this talk's title is intentionally provocative. How AI will design your life. I understand this is going to make some of you bristle, but we all know that artificial intelligence is going to significantly change our lives and the lives of our children and our children's children. But how? And do we want it to? And are we okay with AI designing our lives? When most people think about artificial intelligence, they think about manipulative technology, hell-bent on working against us. This is classic techno extrapolation. Whatever is today will be the same tomorrow, but more so. So it's no wonder that today's perception of new technology is shaped by those interested in fear and loathing. Fear sells. It gets us to pay attention. So we see stories of technology killing us, binding us, blinding us, or screwing us, sometimes literally. Now this is nothing new. Whatever the biggest breakthrough of the day was, people have always imagined it would continue to its logical extreme. Sometimes they were right, but oftentimes their visions were hilariously off. Today, when people think of artificial intelligence, they conjure the worst-case scenarios of manipulative technology telling us what to do. That's because there's good precedent for media used as a tool for control. As Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. In other words, perception is shaped by those who control the channels of persuasion. From about 15,000 years ago, up until just a few hundred years ago, kings and clergy controlled the dissemination of information to tell most people what to do and what to think. Today, legacy mass media like cable television and traditional news sites tell people what to care about wars thousands of miles away, tragedies that have nothing to do with them, and time-wasting sensationalism. They do this not for your benefit, but to feed their pockets by having us spend as much time as possible worrying about somebody else's problem. As we say in the media business, if it bleeds, it leads. It's not that the media is an evil business or unethical, it's just the way it is. You give them your attention, and they sell your eyeballs to advertisers. The problem is there is no guardrail, there's no circuit breaker, there's nothing to tell us when we've had enough of the topics they want us to focus on and when we should turn off and go get a life. Thankfully, the recent counterbalance of user-generated content and citizen journalism has given us the power to follow topics and perspectives we believe are worth our time. But we all know the downside. Mob rule online and crowds out nuance and good faith discussions by rewarding clickbait. The result is wasted time, wasted potential, and wasted lives. But when I scan the horizon, I see new possibilities ahead. Maybe there's a chance the future will not be what we expect. Maybe the future could be the same but worse, but it also could be better, much better. I'd like to propose a radical, optimistic, and agentic possible future based on the principles of consumer psychology that I've studied for the past 15 years. Starting with the question mankind has struggled with for the better part of 200,000 years. Whether consciously or unconsciously, we have always struggled to answer this question. What do I do? It's a simple question. Most animals rely on instinct or mimicry. They don't contemplate, they act. As far as we know, fish don't learn how to swim, it's encoded in their DNA. Birds learn to fly when they're big enough to tumble out of the nest. It is only humans, as far as we know, that have an internal dialogue, a voice that tells us what to do when we're faced with life's trickier decisions. Let me give you an example. Recently, I had lunch with a new friend. He's a very accomplished guy, he's a multimillionaire, and he's an executive coach to Fortune 500 CEOs. But perhaps the thing he is most proud of is the fact that he has climbed Mount Everest twice. Now, I won't tell you his name, it's a very private conversation, but I will tell you exactly what happened. You see, as we waited for our main course, I told him about my work, and we discussed what we each do for a living. I am a behavioral designer. I help companies build products and services to get people hooked for good. My first book, Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products, was a cookbook on human behavior that sold over 500,000 copies and counting. Duolingo uses the hook model to get people hooked on learning a new language. Fitbod uses the hook model to get people hooked on exercise. Even the Bible app, a case study in my book with over 500 million downloads, gets people hooked to prayer and devotion. So as I told him this, I noticed that he was a bit distracted. I couldn't tell exactly what he was looking for, but I could see it was something across the table. At first, I thought it was his phone. But then he said this. He said, "Hey, so you study human behavior, right?" "Yeah, that's what I do." He says, "So tell me this. Why is it that I can climb the highest mountain in the world twice, but I can't resist that plate of truffle fries? Give me some of those." And he pulled it over and he reached over for those truffle fries like he was about to summit another peak. And he took every single truffle fry and he dipped them into a batch of mayonnaise and ate every one. Maybe this sounds familiar to some of you. I'm sure you can relate, even I can relate to this struggle of making good decisions regarding what we eat, how much we exercise, when we scroll, are we spending too much on our devices? Maybe you struggle with this as well. What we often forget when we think about artificial intelligence and how it may manipulate our behaviors is that there are all sorts of intelligences that are manipulating our behaviors every single day. Not only is media intelligence manipulating our minds, but products, from truffle fries to TikTok, are designed to change your behavior. But the most prolific and most dangerous form of intelligence manipulating your behavior is, of course, you. More specifically, it's our current selves doing the exact opposite of what our future selves want. Behavioral economists have known for some time that we value current rewards more than long-term benefits. This phenomenon is called hyperbolic discounting. What is that beer belly but the sum of thousands of decisions your past self made against the will of the person you are today? When we spend too much, eat too much, drink too much, scroll too much, we are trading what we want in the long term for immediate gratification. We hear that little voice in our heads and we think it's us, but you are not your thoughts, and you don't have to believe everything you think. We exert self-control using our prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive function. It tells us when to restrain ourselves when we're meant to put the brakes on impulsive behaviors we may regret. But we know how weak it can be. We can set the best intentions but fail when we're in the moment. Just one more drink, one more cookie, one more tap, one more scroll. And to be fair, it's not your fault. You didn't create social media. You didn't create truffle fries or chocolate cake. It's not your fault. But it is your responsibility. Because who else's responsibility could it possibly be? Maybe the government. The government will save us by passing laws to help us cut back. Unlikely. Most people want to be free to smoke or drink or eat truffle fries or watch Netflix if that's what they choose. Maybe the manufacturers of these products will save us. Well, if you hold your breath waiting for these companies or the government to do something, I'm afraid you're going to suffocate. Companies' foundational incentive is to make products people want. This means that everything is going to become more enticing, more delicious, and more engaging. Their business models depend on it. So what are consumers to do? Well, current methods of helping us make better choices are woefully inadequate. We read some self-help book, we watch a video on working out on YouTube, or maybe we make a New Year's resolution to do better in the coming year. But it doesn't work, at least not for most people. In the United States, 72% of adults are either overweight or obese. Unless you think that's a US-only problem, you'd be mistaken. Right here in Singapore, 40% of us are overweight or obese. And that number, like our fellow citizens, is growing and growing. Most alarmingly, a record number of children, some 20% of kids in the US, are already overweight. And I used to be one of them. By my 11th birthday, I weighed more than I do today, and I wore wider pants than my father, who was already overweight. I wish I could show you pictures from when I was at my heaviest, but they don't exist. I tore up every single photo because I hated the way I looked, and I hated the way I felt. Now, why was I obese? I wish I could tell you it was because the food companies made me that way, but that's not really true. I didn't overeat just because food was manufactured to be delicious. To be honest, I didn't even overeat because I was hungry. Anyone who is obese, if they're honest with themselves and with you, will tell you why we overeat. We eat our feelings. I would eat when I was bored. I would eat when I was lonely. I would eat when I was ashamed about how much I had just eaten. You see, like all behavior, weight management is pain management. And I didn't have the skills at the time to deal with the discomfort of my incessant food cravings in a healthy way. Before we get to how AI will help solve this problem in the future, here's what's working today. Behavioral scientists know that dealing with emotional distress is the key to modifying behavior. For instance, people suffering from a deathly fear of spiders have successfully cured their phobia by wearing virtual reality goggles while receiving instructions for managing their fear. The same technology is being used by a company I invested in called MindCo to help smokers quit by simulating smoking scenarios like sitting in a virtual reality bar while working through the urge to smoke. These simulations have helped hundreds of thousands of people, but they still fall short for two reasons. Firstly, they require expensive hardware, in this case, VR headset. Second, they require people to remember what to do when they face an urge in the real world rather than in a virtual environment. And this is where I believe very soon AI will design your life. You see, if you promise not to judge me, I'm going to tell you about a very personal challenge that I have. So one of the holdovers of my obesity is that I still struggle with intense food cravings. My Achilles heel is late night snacking. A few hours after dinner, when I should be getting ready for bed, I get the munchies for anything sweet, salty, crunchy, or chewy. And if there's anything, and I mean anything in the fridge or the cupboard worth eating, you'll bet I'm going to eat it, and I'm going to eat it all. Various unspecified cheeses, of course. Deli meats with unknown expiration, bring it on. Mustard straight from the jar, maybe, as long as there's nothing to spread it on, I'll eat that too. Now, I'm not proud of this, and I don't like it, and I've looked to curtail this behavior. And it took me 5 years of research and writing to finally find a formula for managing my distractions, from food bingers to TikTok benders. It's helped me get in the best shape of my life, but even this is not enough for everyone. You see, every week I take calls from my readers who have any kind of question from either one of my books. It's free, but sometimes people have to wait a few months to get some time. Now, while many people benefit from adopting the techniques in this book right away, every once in a while I get a call that sounds like this. So I read your book, and let me tell you, Nir, it didn't work for me. I wasn't able to lose weight. I'm still getting distracted. It didn't work. Oh, really? Well, tell me more. What happened? What happened when you tried step number 1? How did that work out? You see, I didn't do step number 1. Oh, you didn't do step number 1. Okay, no problem. Maybe you skipped that one. Tell me, how did step number 2 go for you? How'd that work out? Step number 2, not so much. I didn't do that one either. You see, even when we are handed the answer to our problems on a silver platter, here, 5 years of research supported by 30 pages of citations to peer-reviewed studies, we oftentimes don't put what we know into practice. But what if there was a better way to know what to do at exactly the right time? We in the behavioral design community have all been waiting for this, and it could be AI's killer app. Soon, we will have access to an intelligence on our side, programmed with our long-term interests and a fiduciary responsibility to us alone. A customized AI that will be able to see what we see and hear what we hear and respond just as quickly as we can think for ourselves. When we're about to eat that plate of truffle fries, binge on those late night snacks, scroll past our bedtime, or anything else that might be against our long-term interests, there's a counteracting voice to give us an option better than just giving in. Of course, there will be problems and challenges, privacy, data security, and most importantly, the assurance that this personal AI is helping us do what we want, not what someone else wants. Then, of course, there's the problem of social interaction. How will we listen to each other when we have an AI buzzing in our ears? Maybe we'll turn off certain AI capabilities when we don't need them. Or maybe we'll learn to listen to our AI as seamlessly as we listen to the voice in our own heads. I'm really not sure how we're going to solve these challenges, but it's important to remember that new technology does not solve our problems. New technology gives us better problems. And given the mammoth problems caused by our inability to align with our long-term interests, the path we're on is clearly unsustainable. We need a better way. Now, some people see potential in new drugs like the semaglutide Ozempic, which promises to curb our cravings. But these drugs won't be a solution for the long term. These drugs have side effects. What happens when people get off these medications? The cravings come back unless we know what to do with the discomfort of wanting. We cannot medicate ourselves out of these problems. Pills don't teach skills. The solution won't be a bully on your shoulder telling you what to do. It'll be a voice, maybe actually your voice, representing future you according to your proprietary instructions. Future you won't shame you into changing your behavior. It'll give you options for dealing with your urges tailored to what works for you. For instance, it would be helpful if just before I reach for those late night snacks, I was asked if I'd like help managing my cravings. If not, no thank you, leave me alone. But if so, it would be great to hear options from the best behavioral science research ready to be put into good use right now when it matters most. We already know what works. We just need it delivered at the right time and place to make a difference. This is how AI will design your behavior, according to your goals, your interests, and your life. Viktor Frankl is credited with this wonderful quote. He said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." A personalized, private AI has the potential to give us back that space, allowing us to act according to our true desire and to finally live up to our ultimate potential, to finally give us our growth and our freedom. Thank you.